All right, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh Bahashemi, Hawashai, Bahashem Chachwadash. Double honors to the elder apostles of Great Millstone and citations to the elect. This is Brother Lawyer from Great Millstone, Miami. And the topic I want to go into in this lesson is how the Lord is going to destroy all you witches out there, man. Okay? All right, all you people that's into witchcraft and spiritism, consulting the dead, sacrificing people, whatever you want to call it, man. The ancestors, voodoo, or whatever the hell you want to call it, man, which is many different kinds of forms of witchcraft. Christianity is a form of witchcraft, okay? Catholicism, that's a form of witchcraft. You got a lot of our people that's into, Hinduism and, Buddhism, witchcraft, man. Anything that is not of Yahweh Shai is witchcraft, but I'm really focusing on you individuals that's into the dark arts. And, a lot of our people are into that seducing spirit, man. All right. And, those of them who don't turn away from that will be destroyed, which it is possible to repent from that lifestyle. OK, which we read in the book of Acts, there were many people that, burned their books of art magic, and forsook that way, that way of darkness, man. All right. So it is possible to repent. But for those that don't repent and want to continue on in their pride and forwardness, dealing with the occult and the dark arts, man, you will be destroyed by Yahweh Shai, man. OK, and there's been an uptick in that spirit, that seducing spirit of dealing with, ancient witchcrafts and paganisms has increased. OK, especially here in America, but all over the world, and especially amongst Jake, man. OK, especially with Judah. You see a lot of Judites more so now openly into, witchcrafts and different, mysticisms and stuff, which that's something that's been going on, but it's now more so of a thing that's coming up into the forefront, man. All right. And so the Lord has a judgment. Matter of fact, judgments concerning that in the scriptures, man. So, yeah, man, this is just a rebuke to all that witchcraft spirited shit. OK. All right. So, yeah, let's start here with Exodus chapter 22 and 18. Right. It says, "Thou shalt not suffer a witch to live." OK. And you got a lot of our people that's really prideful behind that witchcraft shit. OK, especially the women. But there's men that's into it, too. OK, they're into, tarot cards and divination and palm reading and the chakras and, the astrological signs and all this other weird shit, doing potions and, just spell casting and shrines. Hey, the Lord gonna destroy you motherfuckers behind that shit, man. Straight up, man. All right. It's plain in the scriptures, man. The Lord said, you're not supposed to be involved in that, man. OK, and it's one thing about a fucking witch or a warlock or a sorcerer, man, that shit comes with a spirit of pride. OK, they begin to think that they're really untouchable, man. But the thing is that people don't understand, like, witchcraft has been being practiced since, the Lord, since Genesis. You read about the serpent in the garden. He would, when you actually go into that word serpent, it goes into a diviner or a witch, a sorcerer, All right. People have been doing that shit for a long time, practicing witchcraft, thinking that they're on some type of level with their sorceries and their mysticisms or whatever. And guess what? Before the flood, they were practicing that bullshit. And guess what? The flood still destroyed all their fuck asses, man. All you motherfuckers that was doing witchcraft before the flood and didn't repent all died from that died during the flood, man. OK. All right. All that spiritism and witchcraft did not stop, our people going into slavery, because you had a lot of our people that was into that bullshit in West Africa, and they still went in slavery, man. The curses still came upon them. A lot of Northern Kingdom, Gad, Reuben, the other tribes was into different witchcrafts and shamanism and spiritism and all this other shit, doing sacrifices, to different familiar spirits and worshiping, animals and doing all different type of sorceries. And they still got slaughtered by the hundreds of thousands and millions. Okay. All right. You read about Pharaoh's sorcerers in Exodus, and his magicians trying to mimic the plagues. And it came to a point where the Lord, that shit wasn't working. It still got destroyed, man. Okay. All right. So look, man, that witchcraft shit, man, people be practicing that shit for whatever purpose that they think, they're going to get out of it. All right. But it's never going to circumvent divine judgment. OK, and that's the great humbling that's coming for the whole world, man. No matter what way of death and rebellion you're into. OK, no matter how you try to finesse it and perfect it to its finest, corruptible, despicable, abominable detail, the Lord's still going to destroy your ass. OK, you cannot circumvent, all right, or subvert the judgments of Yahweh Shem Yahushai. It don't go like that, bro. All right, because at the end of the day, the Lord's in control of the good and the evil, the right hand spirits and the left hand spirits. Okay. But yeah, going back to the scriptures, man, Deuteronomy 18:9, it says, when thou art come into the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee, thou shalt not learn to do after the abominations of those nations, all right, which the Lord was bringing us into what? The land of Canaan, right? The Canaanites, they was into witchcrafts. You read about it in Wisdom of Solomon, how they was into, odious works of witchcraft. They was into feast of blood. They was into sacrificing children. They was doing, all type of different sexual immoral deeds like homosexuality, changing of gender and kind, bestiality, adultery, all this other stuff, right? Okay, which you can read about that in Leviticus. All right, the Lord told us not to do after their manners and works. Okay, all right, he said don't do after that shit. Okay. All right, it says, thou shalt not be found, there shall not be found among you anyone that maketh his son or his daughter to pass through the fire. All right, which is going into a child sacrifice, which a lot of our people, especially celebrities and, famous people, in this world, they be into sacrificing, loved ones. All right, for fame. OK, or for fortune and prosperity, which is what the ancient Canaanites were into. And they weren't the only people that was into that shit. You had the ancient Greeks and Romans. They was into that shit. The Egyptians were into, various forms of witchcrafts. The Ammonites, the Moabites, they was into that fuckery. All right. The Sumerians, the Akkadians, all of them was into that madness, man. OK. All right. For prosperity, hoping for a good harvest or for riches or fame or for protection, doing all type of filth, okay, and just diabolical shit, all right, or that useth divination or an observer of times or an enchanter or a witch or a charmer or a consulter with familiar spirits or a wizard or a necromancer, man. So you have our people that's into, tarot cards and going to the psychic and, there's into the astrology, my moon sign is in, Orion, trying calling themselves predicting the future or whatever. OK, you got people that's into enchantments, casting spells on people. Trying to put curses on people or whatever, or casting spells on themselves for protection or whatever it is, which is all folly because, really these people do these things. They got to, do all kind of abominable things, drink blood. They have to, sacrifice children. They have to do abominable deeds. They have to, consult spirits, get possessed, by demons and, use and cast different spells, worship all different kind of gods. But see, the thing is that about witchcraft, the things that people do witchcraft for? The Lord already promises you if you serve him. You know, you want fortune and protection and provision. If you serve the Lord, you're going to get that. Okay. But, you know, people want to go up the other way, man. Okay. All right. It says, or a witch or a charmer or a consulter with familiar spirits. You got our people that's into worshiping the ancestors, you know, calling up the dead. It says, for all that do these things are an abomination unto the Lord. And because of these abominations, the Lord thy God doth drive them out from before thee. OK, thou shalt be perfect with the Lord thy God. So the reason why the Lord drove out the Canaanites as we were going into the land, you know, sending different wasps and plagues and hornets upon them, wild beasts, and had us kicking their ass and putting them to death, burning down their cities, is because these people were into abominable deeds, man. OK, for these nations which thou shalt possess hearkened unto observers of times and unto diviners. But as for thee, the Lord thy God hath not suffered thee to do so. OK, so the Lord don't want us into that madness, man. But, you know, of course, you have a lot of our people that's into things like that. They go to the witch doctor. They go to the voodoo priestess, the Santeria, whatever the fuck, you know, and they're into that. You know, a lot of these celebrities, even these average, regular, everyday niggas you see walking down the street, a lot of them be into witchcraft, man. Don't get it twisted. Not just a thing that takes place amongst the, you know, the so-called upper class of Jake that's, you know, all on the TV screens. Now, I'd be the regular average motherfucker out here, you know, that's, you know, out here walking around, you know, that they at the grocery store ringing up your, you know, your groceries, you know, they're the bus driver, the doctor, you know, the lady down the street, the teacher, you know, the policeman, all of them be into that shit, man. A lot of people be into that madness, man. Hey, the Lord is going to destroy you motherfuckers, man. Straight up, man. Fire and brimstone, man. All this witchcraft motherfuckers doing, okay, thinking that they on a level, they just deep and just so above the Lord and above the scriptures, man. You know, and they, you know, they just manifesting reality as they and molding it as they see fit. The nuclear missiles are going to come and blow this shit off the map. Okay. Ain't no about amount of witchcraft these motherfuckers can do that's going to stop that, man. Okay. All right. This is Leviticus 18 and verse 21. It says, thou shalt not let any of thy seed pass through the fire of Molech, neither shalt thou profane the name of the Lord of thy God. I am the Lord. Salakia. All right. So the Lord said you're not supposed to be sacrificing your children, which a lot of individuals of our people do this madness, man. OK. All right. Whether it be celebrities, you know, sacrificing loved ones, sacrificing their children. And you also got another form of it with these, you know, these clinics. All right. These, you know, little one deletion clinics, man. That's a form of witchcraft, man. OK. All right. So the Lord said, don't be into that. You know, don't be doing that shit, man. OK. Let's go to Malachi. And the Spirit's just on me to just do this lesson, man. You know, our people. Look, man, the Lord did not suffer us to do these things. These are the degenerate deeds that the Lord let the other nations get into, man. All right. And our purpose as a people, you know, was to serve the Lord and to show that through serving and fearing the Lord, Yahweh, you know, Bahashim Yahweh Shai, you know, that wisdom, you know, was supposed to be a light unto the nations, man. Because when you serve the Lord, you can, you know, you serve the Lord said he gonna bless you, man. OK. You know, with the fruit of the body and with cattle and riches and, you know, a fruitful harvest and protection. All right. But when you don't serve the Lord, that's when the curses come upon you, man. You know, but people who practice witchcraft want to circumvent having to go through Yahweh Shema Shai in righteousness. They want to deal with the left hand side and forsake the Lord. OK, and then think that they're above the Lord. OK, that serving the Lord is beneath them. And that's how, you know, throughout the times, many people have got destroyed, man. OK. All right. But anyway, this is Micah chapter 5 and verse 12. It says, "And I will cut off witchcrafts out of thine hand, and thou shalt have no more soothsayers," man. So this is according to the prophecies, man. All you individuals doing witchcraft and soothsaying and psychic, whatever the fuck you are into, okay? You know, casting spells. This goes for the heathen and for Jake, man. You're gonna be destroyed, man. Okay? Thy graven images also will I cut off, and thy standing images out of the midst of thee, and thou shalt no more worship the work of thine hands. I will pluck up thy groves out of the midst of thee, and I will also destroy thy cities. All right. And it says, I will execute vengeance and anger and fury upon the heathen, such as they have not heard. Okay. So all these graven images and idols that have been created, you know, all these different forms of worship, you know, these death styles, not lifestyles, death styles. Okay. All right. These different gods and, you know, these different sorceries. The Lord's going to cut all of that madness off in the earth, man. And it's going to be known that Yahweh Shem Yahushua is the true living power, man. Okay. The scriptures say the idol shall he utterly abolish, and the Lord alone shall be exalted in that day. Okay. Now this is Wisdom of Solomon. Okay. Chapter 17. Okay. And verse 1. All right. Because the Lord, you know, in ancient Egypt, when we're in Egypt, the Lord brought darkness upon the Egyptians, man. OK. All right. For their cruelty to the Israelites and for all their little witchcraft that they was doing. All right. And when the Lord was bringing them plagues, they couldn't do nothing about it, man. All that witchcraft, mysticism, spell book casting shit they was doing. They couldn't do nothing about them plagues, man. All right. It says, for great are thy judgments and cannot be expressed. Therefore, unnurtured souls have erred. For when unrighteous men thought to oppress the holy nation, they being shut up in their houses, the prisoners of darkness and fetters with the bonds of a long night, lay there exiled from the eternal providence, man. So the Lord cut them people off from any form of mercy, man. He plunged the entire kingdom into darkness, man. And they were too scared to leave their houses. They could not see their hands in front of them. They could try to light a fire. It couldn't give them no light. And they just started hearing noises, you know. And that's a fit judgment. You know, you got a lot of people that's into witchcraft, this thing. They're just so untouchable. They fearless. They're not scared of nothing, you know. And the Lord plunged darkness on their ass, had them spooked, man. Okay. It says, for while they supposed to lie hid in their secret sins, they were scattered under a dark veil of forgetfulness, being astonished and troubled with strange apparitions, yo. Okay. They started seeing things, man. Seeing spirits and apparitions, started messing with their mind, you know, seeing things that weren't there, seeing things that were there they couldn't explain, you know, seeing visions, all type of paranormal activity was happening around them. It says, for neither might the corner that held them keep them from fear, right? But noises as of waters falling down sounded about them, and sad visions appeared unto them with heavy countenance, you know. So they just started hearing noises of rushing waters falling down out of nowhere. They couldn't explain where it was coming from. This is while they're in the midst of just pitch black darkness. They couldn't see the sun, moon, and the stars, which they worshiped that shit. The Egyptians was into worshiping the celestial bodies. You couldn't see them. You know, all the little gods you worship, the star gods, the sky god, the sun god, the moon god, the river god. Couldn't none of them save them from that shit. None of them save them at all from the plagues, man. And they just started hearing noises and seeing faces, you know, of just ghoulish images. All right, sad visions and heavy countenance. Oh, just showing up on that. The Lord was fucking that shit up. The Lord was fucking their shit up, man. Okay. Beautiful, man. It says, no power of the fire might give them light, neither could the bright flames of the stars endure the light to lighten that horrible night. Okay, so they couldn't they could try to light a fire and they still couldn't see nothing. Light a torch or a lamp, they couldn't see nothing, man. The stars couldn't, the shining of the stars and the celestial bodies couldn't shine through the darkness. Okay. Only there appeared unto them a fire kindled of itself. So out of nowhere, you know, in the middle of the darkness, there would, a fire, it would look like a fire just sparked up out of nowhere. Very dreadful. For being much terrified, they thought the things which they saw to be worse than the things which they saw not. Okay, so they were just afraid, man. All right. As for the illusions of art magic, they were put down, and their vaunting and wisdom were reproved with disgrace, man. So all their little witchcraft that they was doing, thought they was high and mighty. And that's the thing about a fucking witch and warlock and sorcerer, motherfucker, man. They are, bro, them motherfuckers proud, bro. But once the Lord got to working on their ass, man, all that vaunting of wisdom was put down and disgraced, man. You know, because individuals like that think they got all the answers. They, you know, can't nobody tell them nothing. They got the truth. They know the inner wisdom, the secret knowledge, you know. You know, people come to them with all kind of problems they feel like they can fix, and, you know, ain't none of it worked, man. They were broken, man. The Lord broke them motherfuckers, man. That's what's going to happen to you individuals that's into this witchcraft so heavy, man. The Lord's going to break you, okay? It says, for they that promised to drive away terrors and troubled from a sick soul were sick themselves of fear worthy to be laughed at, man. So they were, the Lord confounded them, humiliated them, man. Okay, because they thought through their witchcraft they could just drive away troubles, and you know, it's okay. You know, I just do this little witchcraft, everything will be okay. That's what Pharaoh's sorcerers promised him. You know, we just gonna do the plays. They gonna do plays. We're gonna do plays. They could do it. We could do it. Come from out, they couldn't do nothing, man. All right, verse 9, it says, for though no terrible thing did fear them, yet being scared with beasts that passed by and hissing of serpents, they died for fear, denying what they saw the air, which could of no side be avoided. Okay. All right. So they started seeing things, man, wild beasts, you know, just passing by, and the sound of serpents. You know, but it wasn't even there for real, man. It's just the Lord was messing with their mind, man. OK, and they just started dropping dead out of fear, man. You know how afraid you have to be to just drop dead out of just plain fear. OK, for wickedness condemned of her own witness is very timorous, and being pressed with conscience always forecasteth grievous things. OK. So they were afraid because they knew that they had been doing wickedness, man. OK, treating the Lord's people, you know, with oppression, and then also, you know, their own wickedness that they was doing with their witchcraft and idolatries and their wicked works, man. They just knew, they knew the Lord was getting on their ass, man. They knew they was being judged, man. So they just was condemned and, you know, messed up in the mind, man. Started dropping dead. For fear is nothing else but a betraying of the succors which reason offers. So you individuals doing witchcraft, man, the Lord got something planned, bro. The Lord got something planned for that ass, man. Okay. All right. It says, in the expectation from within being less counted the ignorance more than the cause which bringeth the torment. But they sleeping the same sleep that night, which was indeed intolerable, and which came upon them out of the bottoms of inevitable hell, were partly vexed with monstrous apparitions. So they saw monstrous apparition like creatures, man, you know, and partly fainted, their heart failing them. For a sudden fear and not looked for came upon them. So then whosoever there fell down was straightly kept shut up in prison without iron bars, man. So they were shook, man, trembling in their own boots. OK, for whether he were a husbandman or a shepherd or a laborer in the field, he was overtaken and dureth that necessity and endured that necessity which could not be avoided, for they were all bound with one chain of darkness, man. Okay. So it's like they was trapped in just a dark, a prison of darkness, man. They couldn't see nothing. They started seeing visions and horrible torments and apparitions, hearing noises. Okay. Whether it were a whistling wind or melodious noise of birds among the spreading branches, or a pleasing fall of water running violently, or a terrible sound of stone cast down, or a running that could not be seen of skipping beast. Oh my goodness. Okay, so they started hearing noises like it was like an avalanche of rocks just falling down, but they couldn't see nothing, man. Just a flock of birds just chattering, winds, hearing stampeding beasts, and this is what's coming upon you, wicked individuals, man. Or a roaring voice of most savage wild beasts. So just started hearing like wild animals screeching. Oh my God. All right. It says, or a rebounding echo from a hollow mountain, man. All right. Just started hearing shit, Just started hearing noises, man. Hearing echoing noises. These things made them swoon for fear. So, yo, man, you do not want to mess with Yahweh Bashim Yahushai, man. It says, for the whole world shined with clear light, and none were hindered in their labor. Over them only was spread a heavy night, an image of that darkness, which should hereafter receive them, but yet were they themselves more grievous than the darkness. Okay. So we had light, but they was getting fucked up, man. So you individuals doing witchcraft, man, the Lord gonna hit y'all with these apparitions, man. Wait till the lights turn off, some type of EMP blackout shit happen, however the Lord do it. Hey, man, you motherfuckers gonna get dealt with, man, by them left-hand side spirits y'all working with. Gonna turn on your ass. Okay. All right. I'm gonna close out with this, man. Revelation chapter 21 and 18. It says, but the fearful and the unbelieving and the abominable and murderers and whoremongers and sorcerers and idolaters. That's what y'all witchcraft motherfuckers be into. And all liars, and that's lies y'all into as well, shall have their part in the lake which burneth with fire and brimstone, which is the second death. So y'all gonna die in a nuclear missile, saith the Lord, man. Okay. All right. So, hey, with that, Lord willing, this was edifying. I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Hakwadash. Double honors to the elder apostles, great millstone, citations to the elect. Shalom.